Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. When we talk about coins, most people think of them as just pocket change, something so ordinary that it often ends up lying forgotten in jars, drawers, or car cup holders. But the truth is that coins can carry stories, mysteries, and even life-changing fortunes within their tiny metallic frames. And today, we are going to dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories of modern numismatics, a story that takes a coin most of us overlook, the humble 1-cent coin, and reveals how a single year, a single minting, and a single error or rarity can make that coin worth not just a cent, not just a dollar, but millions. Yes, millions. I am talking about the 2021 cent coin, a coin that on the surface looks like every other penny in your change, but in reality, it has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world. Now, to understand why the 2020 cent has become a phenomenon, we need to understand what it is at its core. The United States 1-cent coin, better known as the penny, has been around for more than 200 years. It has gone through countless designs, countless changes in material, countless revisions to its imagery, yet it remains the smallest unit of currency in the American system, a coin so simple that many people consider it almost useless. But ironically, it is this very coin, the lowest denomination, that has produced some of the rarest and most valuable pieces in numismatic history. From the 1909 South VDB Center to the 1943 copper penny to the double die errors of 1955, collectors know that when it comes to pennies, you always have to look closer, because hidden among billions of ordinary pieces could be one that changes everything. The 2020 penny fits into this tradition, but with its own modern twist. At first glance, the 2021 cent looks exactly like the penny you and I have seen in circulation for years. On the obverse, or the front, is the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a design that has been in place since 1909 to celebrate the centennial of his birth. Above him the word Liberty, beside him the motto In God We Trust, and beneath him the date 2020, accompanied by a small mint mark indicating where the coin was struck. On the reverse, the design introduced in 2010 continues, a shield with a scroll inscribed with the words 1 cent, symbolizing the preservation of the Union and America's strength. In other words, nothing about the design screams rarity or unusualness. Yet the beauty of coin collecting is that rarity is not always about design changes. Sometimes it's about errors. Sometimes it's about condition. And sometimes it's about mysteries that only emerge years later. So let's talk about weight and composition first, because this is important. The modern U.S. penny, since 1982, is no longer made of solid copper. Instead, it is a copper-plated zinc coin, composed of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. Its weight is 2.5 grams. Its diameter is 19.05 millimeters. Its thickness is 1.52 millimeters. By these measurements, every 2020 penny should be identical. But here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Among the billions of pennies minted in 2020, a handful appear to deviate from this standard. Some have been reported to weigh differently, slightly heavier or lighter, sparking theories that certain planchets, the blank discs from which coins are struck, were made of different metals or contained leftover materials. Others display minting errors, double strikes, off-center impressions, die cracks, or anomalies in the lettering. For the casual spender, these would go unnoticed. But for collectors, they represent potential treasures. Now, why would such a coin be worth up to $5 million? That figure may sound exaggerated at first, but let's look at history. The 1943 copper penny, of which only a handful exist, has sold for more than $1 million at auction. The 1793 chain cent, one of the earliest American coins, can command prices in the millions. Even modern era coins, like the 2004 Wisconsin extra leaf quarter, have been worth thousands. What drives these prices is the combination of rarity, demand, and narrative. People want to own a piece of history, something so rare that only a few in the world exist. And the 2020 penny has become the subject of intense speculation because certain examples have been rumored to be unique, possibly struck on the wrong planchet, possibly carrying doubling errors, and possibly being hoarded by collectors who recognize their true value. But beyond the technicalities, there is another layer to this story, and that is the market itself. In the coin collecting world, value is not fixed. It is fluid, shaped by demand, shaped by hype, and shaped by the passion of collectors who are willing to bid extraordinary sums to secure the coin they desire. A coin is ultimately worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it. And in the case of the rare 2021 cent varieties, there are collectors and investors out there willing to put down millions. Why? Because in the world of numismatics, owning a one-of-a-kind rarity is like owning the crown jewel of a collection. It's prestige, it's history, and it's an investment that only grows in time. Now let us look deeper at the history of Lincoln cents leading up to 2020, because the context is key. The Lincoln cent was first struck in 1909, replacing the Indian head cent designed by Victor David Brenner. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure rather than a symbolic image like Liberty. This marked a turning point in American coinage. Over the years, the Lincoln cent went through different reverse designs. The wheat years from 1909 to 1958, the Lincoln Memorial from 1959 to 2008, the special bicentennial designs in 2009, and finally the Union Shield introduced in 2010, which continues today. By 2020, the Lincoln cent had become one of the longest-running coin series in American history. Yet despite its ubiquity, certain years stand out because of low mintages, unique varieties, or striking errors. Collectors keep an especially close eye on every new release, because you never know which year will yield the next great rarity. And in 2020, something about the combination of minting anomalies and the unique historical backdrop made it particularly intriguing. Think about it. 2020 was not just any year. It was the year the world was struck by a pandemic, the year economies halted, the year millions of people hoarded coins and paper money due to fear of shortages. In fact, the United States experienced a well-documented coin shortage in 2020, as circulation slowed dramatically. This created unusual circumstances in the minting and distribution process. Some coins never reached circulation in the usual way. Some were stockpiled. Some entered circulation sporadically, causing supply chain confusion. Against this backdrop, the 2020 penny emerged not just as a piece of metal, but as a historical artifact of a year unlike any other. That historical significance adds another layer to its allure. When future generations look back at 2020, they will see a year of crisis, resilience, and change. Owning a pristine, rare, or unusual penny from that year is like owning a small time capsule of history. Now imagine this. A collector discovers a flawless 2020 penny with a rare minting error, perhaps a double die on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile shows a ghost-like doubling. Or perhaps the coin was mistakenly struck on a copper planchet instead of zinc, making it weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.5. Such a mistake would instantly catapult it into the realm of million-dollar coins. And if only one or two exist, then we're talking about prices that could exceed $5 million at auction. The story alone would be enough to drive collectors wild. This is why the market buzz exists today. While billions of ordinary 2020 pennies circulate with virtually no premium, certain unique specimens have been identified by grading services, authenticated as genuine anomalies, and valued at extraordinary levels. Auction houses, private collectors, and dealers whisper about them, fueling a frenzy that makes every coin hunter check their pocket change more carefully. It's a modern gold rush, except instead of gold nuggets, The treasure is a small copper-colored disc that most people ignore. So, the next time you find a 2020 penny in your change, don't just toss it aside. Hold it up. Look at the date. Examine the details. Weigh it if you can. Inspect the letters. Because you never know. It might look ordinary, but it could be the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth $5 million. And that is the incredible story we are unfolding here, a story that shows how history, rarity, error, and demand converge to transform the smallest coin into one of the most valuable objects you could ever hold in your hand. When we continue talking about the 2021 cent coin, it is important to recognize that this is not just about a piece of metal, it is about an entire culture of collecting. Coin collecting, or numismatics as it is formally called, is one of the oldest hobbies in the world. Kings, emperors, and scholars have collected coins for centuries, and the reason is simple. Every coin is a piece of history you can hold in your hand. For some, it's about the artistry of the design. For others, it's about the thrill of hunting something rare. And for many, it's about the potential for financial gain. The 2020 penny sits right at the crossroads of all these motivations. It carries artistry, it carries history, and for those lucky enough to find the right variety, it carries the potential of life-changing value. Let us first talk about the design once again in detail, because sometimes the most ordinary details hold hidden meaning. On the obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln facing right. This design, created originally by Victor David Brenner, has become one of the most iconic images in American coinage. The fine lines of Lincoln's beard, the solemn look in his eyes, the word liberty to the left, the motto "In God We Trust" above, all these features have been minted billions of times, but they never lose their symbolic weight. Lincoln is not just a president. He is the face of unity, the man who preserved the Union during its greatest crisis, the man who abolished slavery, the man who defined freedom for millions. To see his profile on a coin minted in 2020, a year of global crisis and division, is almost poetic. The message of endurance, resilience, and unity is right there in the palm of your hand. On the reverse, the Union Shield design continues. It features 13 vertical stripes joined by a single horizontal bar, symbolizing the original 13 states joined into one nation under a federal government. Across the shield lies a banner inscribed with the denomination 1 cent. Above it is the inscription United States of America. To the average person, it's just a shield. To the historian, it's a reminder of strength, solidarity, and national identity. And to the collector, it is one more detail to inspect closely, because sometimes errors appear in the tiniest parts: the letters, the lines of the shield, the edges of the banner. Double impressions, cracks, weak strikes, these are the things that transform ordinary into extraordinary. The symbolism doesn't end there. The very act of minting coins during 2020, when so much of the world was in chaos, is itself a statement. Even as industries shut down, even as people were confined to their homes, the United States Mint continued to strike coins. These coins circulated slowly at first, creating the unusual coin shortage that became headline news, but eventually they filtered into the economy. To many, the coins of 2020 are reminders of perseverance, proof that even in dark times, life continues. That sentiment gives these coins emotional weight, which often translates into collector demand decades later. Imagine holding a pristine, untouched 2020 penny in the year 2070. To a collector of the future, it will not just be a coin, it will be a relic of the year everything changed. Now let's shift to the technical side, because coin value is not based on emotion alone. Collectors analyze coins with a precise language: grade, strike, luster, toning, planchet quality, and so forth. The grade of a coin is perhaps the most crucial factor in determining its value. A 2020 penny pulled from circulation, scratched, dirty, and worn is likely worth only face value. But a 2020 penny that has never been spent, one that was carefully preserved in pristine condition straight from a mint roll, might grade MS-67 or MS-68. Such coins are rare, because almost every penny gets banged up in handling. An MS-68 graded coin from a common year can still fetch hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. And if that same coin also contains a mint error, then the value can skyrocket. Error coins are the heart of the 2020 penny mystery. Let's go over the types of errors that could exist. The first is the double die, where the design elements such as the date or the lettering appear doubled. This occurs when the die itself is misaligned during the hubbing process, and it creates one of the most popular types of collectible errors. A 2020 double die set would be a headline coin. The second is the off-center strike, where the design is not properly centered on the planchet, leaving part of the coin blank. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin. A third possibility is the broad strike, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally shapes its rim, resulting in a larger, distorted coin. Then, there are die cracks, die clashes, and planchet errors, all of which can make a coin unique. Imagine finding a 2020 penny struck on a dime planchet, thinner and lighter, yet still carrying Lincoln's image. That would instantly be a high-value rarity. But the rarest of all would be a wrong metal error. Remember how I mentioned earlier that pennies since 1982 are made of zinc with copper plating? Well, sometimes mistakes happen, and a coin is struck on an old copper planchet or another type of blank entirely. This is how the legendary 1943 copper penny came to exist. And if by some miracle a 2020 cent was struck on a pure copper planchet, or even a foreign coin blank, its rarity would be unmatched. Such a coin could indeed be valued in the millions, because it would be one of a kind, a modern error comparable to the classics of the past. So why do people talk about the 2020 penny being worth $5 million? It comes down to speculation and confirmed reports. In numismatic circles, there have been whispers of unique error coins from that year. Some claim that private auctions have already taken place behind closed doors. Some claim grading services have authenticated specimens that will one day go public. Whether these rumors are fully true or partly myth, the effect is undeniable. The market is buzzing and demand is high. The psychology of collecting plays a huge role here. If collectors believe a coin is rare and valuable, they will pay to secure it. And once someone pays an extraordinary sum, that sets the precedent for future sales. That's how a coin worth 1 cent can suddenly leap into the realm of millions. But let's not underestimate another factor: storytelling. A coin story is often as valuable as the coin itself. The 2020 penny has the perfect narrative. It was minted during one of the most historic years of modern times. It comes from a long and beloved series, the Lincoln cent. It may exist in rare error forms. It has been tied to whispers of million-dollar sales. And above all, it connects the ordinary with the extraordinary. Anyone could find one in their pocket. Anyone could be holding a potential fortune without realizing it. This story captures imaginations, and when imagination is captured, value follows. Think of the collector who holds up a flawless 2020 error penny and says, "This coin was struck in the year of the pandemic. Billions were made, but only one like this exists. While the world was in chaos, this little coin slipped through the cracks of perfection and became a legend." That narrative alone makes the coin a treasure. Auctioneers know this, collectors know this, and investors know this. And that is why the market whispers about figures as high as $5 million. To understand the magnitude, let's compare it with other famous coins. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, a $20 gold piece, sold for nearly $19 million in 2021. The 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, the first U.S. silver dollar, sold for $10 million. The 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, one of only 5 known, has sold for over $4 million. These are coins with history, rarity, and mystique. Now imagine adding the 2020 penny to that list, a coin that represents modern rarity in a world that thinks everything is mass-produced and ordinary. Suddenly, the lowly cent is elevated to the level of kings, and so we return to the everyday reality of people checking their change, scouring coin rolls, and buying boxes of pennies from banks. Coin roll hunting has exploded in popularity in recent years, and the 2020 penny has become a target. People film themselves opening rolls, praying for an error coin. YouTube videos showcase finds, TikToks go viral with claims of valuable pennies, and social media spreads stories that fuel the frenzy even further. It's a treasure hunt, accessible to anyone, because all it costs is 1 cent. And the possibility of turning that cent into millions is irresistible. So here's the question you should ask yourself. How many 2020 pennies have you overlooked? How many times have you let one slip from your hand without a second thought? How many potential fortunes have been sitting in drawers, waiting to be recognized? The truth is, most 2020 pennies will never be worth more than a cent. But among them, hidden like needles in a haystack, there could be the rare ones, the errors, the anomalies, the legends. And if you are lucky enough to find one, you won't just be holding a coin, you'll be holding history, value, and a story that could change your life. When we begin to talk about the value of any coin, especially the 2021 cent piece, we have to talk about grading. Grading is the backbone of the numismatic world. It is the language that collectors, dealers, and auction houses use to determine the quality of a coin, and ultimately, its worth. Imagine two identical 2020 pennies. One is scratched, worn, and circulated. The other has never been touched by human hands since it left the mint. To the untrained eye, both might seem ordinary. But to a collector, the difference is like night and day. The first is worth 1 cent, maybe a little more if it has an error. The second could be worth thousands, tens of thousands, or in the rarest of cases, even millions. The main organizations responsible for professional coin grading are the Professional Coin Grading Service, known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, known as NGC. These companies employ expert graders who examine coins under magnification, checking for every detail, strike sharpness, luster, surface marks, coloration, and any signs of tampering. They then assign a grade on the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1 to 70. A grade of 1 represents a coin so worn that its details are barely visible, while a grade of 70 represents absolute perfection, a flawless coin with no marks visible under 5x magnification. For modern coins like the 2020 penny, a grade of MS-70 is extremely rare and highly coveted. Even MS-69, 1 point lower, is impressive and valuable. Now imagine this: a 2020 penny with a major error, authenticated by PCGS or NGC, graded MS-69 or MS-70. This would not just be a coin, it would be a phenomenon. Collectors would fight over it. Auction houses would promote it as the centerpiece of their sales. And the final price could indeed soar into the millions. This is how the figure of $5 million becomes believable, because the market is not rational. The market is driven by passion, competition, and prestige. A wealthy collector who already owns every major rarity might pay such a sum simply to say, "I own the only one." But grading is not just about condition. It also provides authentication, and authentication is critical. In a world where counterfeits exist, especially online, collectors rely on grading services to verify that what they are buying is genuine. Without authentication, a supposed error coin is just a curiosity. With authentication, it becomes a verified rarity. This is why stories of 2020 pennies selling for millions often involve grading companies, because without their certification, no serious collector would pay such prices. Let's also look at production numbers, because scarcity is another factor. In 2020, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies across its facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint uses no mint mark, Denver uses a D, and San Francisco produces proof coins marked with S. Out of these billions, most were ordinary circulation coins. But proof coins, struck with special dies and polished planchets for collectors, are always fewer in number. Proof pennies from 2020, especially in perfect condition, can command premiums. And among circulation coins, only a handful might carry the kinds of errors that make them legendary. Think of it like this: a billion coins is a vast ocean, and within that ocean, there may only be a few rare pearls. Finding one is a matter of luck, persistence, and knowledge. Collectors know this, which is why coin roll hunting has become such a massive hobby. People buy rolls of pennies directly from banks, searching through thousands of coins in hopes of finding that rare error or high-grade gem. Entire YouTube channels are dedicated to this pursuit, and the 2020 penny is a prime target. Videos with titles like, "I found $1 million penny," or "Check your 2020 coins now," rack up millions of views, because the idea of turning pocket change into fortune is irresistible. And while most hunters will never find the $5 million rarity, they do occasionally find coins worth hundreds or thousands, which keeps the dream alive. Auctions are another fascinating part of the story. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly handle rare coins. When an unusual coin is consigned, they market it heavily, publish glossy catalogs, and attract bidders from around the world. Prices often soar well beyond estimates, driven by competition and excitement. Imagine a 2020-era penny going up for auction with a starting bid of $100,000. The bidding war begins, and suddenly, the price is $1 million, then $2 million, then $3 million. The auctioneer's hammer falls at $5 million, and history is made. Stories like this have happened before with other coins, and they could happen again with the 2020 cent, but what makes this coin even more intriguing is the timing. The year 2020 was a turning point not just in history but in numismatics. With the pandemic and the coin shortage, people became more aware of coins in circulation. Media outlets reported on the shortage, encouraging people to turn in their change. This led to a surge of interest in coins, with many people inspecting their change more carefully for the first time in years. As a result, the 2020 penny has a visibility that few other modern coins can claim. It is remembered, it is recognized, and it is tied to a historical moment. That recognition fuels its collectability. Another point to consider is the role of social media and viral content. In the past, information about rare coins traveled slowly, through magazines and numismatic clubs. Today, a single viral video claiming that a certain penny is worth millions can trigger a global frenzy overnight. People in every corner of the world start checking their coins, posting pictures, asking questions, and creating demand. The 2020 penny has benefited enormously from this phenomenon. Whether or not every claim of $1 million value is true, the belief alone creates momentum. And in markets like this, belief often becomes reality, because demand drives price. Now let's explore the psychology of collectors. Why would someone pay millions for a coin? It is not because they need the coin. It is because the coin represents status, achievement, and exclusivity. In the world of collecting, rarity is king. If only one person can own a certain coin, then owning it becomes a badge of honor. It is no different from owning a Picasso painting, a rare diamond, or a piece of historic memorabilia. For the ultra-wealthy, $5 million is not just a purchase, it is an investment in prestige. And unlike many luxury goods, rare coins tend to hold or increase in value over time, making them both symbols of wealth and vehicles of wealth preservation. The 2020 penny fits this psychology perfectly. It is a coin everyone knows, a coin everyone overlooks, yet in its rarest form, it becomes something only one or two people in the world can own. That contrast between common and rare, between ordinary and extraordinary, is irresistible. It's like finding a needle not just in a haystack, but in a haystack that billions of people have walked past without noticing. The satisfaction of owning such a rarity is priceless, and that is what drives collectors to bid astronomical amounts. Finally, let us not forget the role of history. Coins are not just metal. They are artifacts, witnesses to the times in which they were minted. The 2020 penny is a witness to one of the most turbulent years in living memory. Future generations will look back at 2020 as a year of pandemic, struggle, and resilience. And the coins of that year will carry the weight of that history. To hold one is to hold a piece of that story. To own a rare one is to own a unique piece of that story. And when history, rarity, and demand converge, value follows. That is why the 2020 penny is more than just a cent. It is a symbol, a story, and for a lucky few, a fortune worth millions. When we think about the 2020 penny and the rumors of it being worth millions, it is easy to wonder whether such a thing is even possible. After all, how can a coin that was minted so recently, a coin that billions of people have in their pockets, suddenly become a treasure worth $5 million? The answer lies in history, because the history of rare pennies proves that it has happened before, and it can happen again. Take, for example, the 1909 SVDB penny. This coin is legendary in the world of numismatics. In 1909, to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint replaced the Indian head cent with a brand new design featuring Lincoln's portrait. The designer, Victor David Brenner, placed his initials, BDB, on the reverse at the bottom. Some critics thought the initials were too prominent, almost like free advertising for the artist, and they demanded their removal. As a result, only a small number of coins were minted in San Francisco with the S Mint mark and the VDB initials before the design was changed. Today, that coin, the 1909 SVDB, is one of the most famous key dates in American coin collecting. In high grades, it can sell for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. And yet, when it was minted, it was just a penny. No one knew that controversy over initials would transform it into a rarity. That is the power of history combined with circumstance. Now let's look at another legendary penny, the 1943 copper cent. During World War II, copper was a critical resource for the war effort, so the U.S. Mint changed the composition of pennies to steel coated with zinc, giving them a silver appearance. But a few copper planchets from 1942 accidentally remained in the presses, and were struck with the 1943 design. These error coins are among the most famous rarities in U.S. history. Only a handful are known to exist, and they have sold for extraordinary sums at auction, with some fetching over $1 million. Imagine that, a simple mistake, a leftover blank, transformed an ordinary coin into a national treasure. That story resonates strongly with the rumors surrounding the 2020 penny, because if even one wrong metal coin was struck that year, its fate could mirror that of the 1943 copper cent. And then there is the 1955 double die penny, another icon of American numismatics. In 1955, one of the dies used to strike pennies at the Philadelphia Mint was improperly manufactured, creating a dramatic doubling effect on the obverse. The date and lettering appear doubled, bold, and unmistakable. Tens of thousands of these error coins were released into circulation before the mistake was caught. When people began finding them in pocket change, a sensation erupted. Today, the 1955 double die is one of the most sought-after pennies, worth thousands of dollars even in circulated condition. Its fame comes not just from rarity, but from visibility. Anyone could spot the doubling with the naked eye. The coin became a legend, and its story lives on in every collector's mind. These three examples, the 1909 SVDB, the 1943 copper, and the 1955 double die, form a kind of holy trinity of rare pennies. They prove that pennies, the smallest denomination, can carry the greatest stories. And each of them shows a different path to rarity. The 1909 SVB became rare because of low mintage and design controversy. The 1943 copper became rare because of a metal error during a time of war. The 1955 double die became rare because of a striking mistake that slipped into circulation. Three different causes, one result, extraordinary value. Now let's connect this to the 2020 penny. The parallels are striking. Just like 1909, the 2020 penny carries historical weight, minted during a year that will never be forgotten. Just like 1943, there are whispers of wrong metal planchets that slipped through. And just like 1955, collectors are on the lookout for doubling errors that could become legendary. In other words, the 2020 penny sits at the intersection of all the factors that have produced million-dollar coins in the past: history, error, rarity, and story. But here's what makes the 2020 penny even more fascinating. Unlike older rarities, which were discovered years or decades later, the 2020 penny is being scrutinized in real time. Collectors, dealers, and even casual hobbyists are actively hunting for it, scanning every detail, weighing every coin, magnifying every date. This means that discoveries are being reported quickly, and hype spreads instantly through social media. If someone finds a dramatic error, the news can go viral overnight. That creates a market frenzy far faster than in the past, where word traveled slowly. The internet has changed the game, and the 2020 penny is at the heart of this new era. Let's also not forget the role of condition. One reason older pennies are valuable is that few have survived in pristine condition. Most were spent, worn down, and discarded. The same will happen with 2020 pennies. Billions exist today, but over time, most will be scratched, corroded, or destroyed. Only a tiny fraction will remain in mint state, and an even tinier fraction will hold error varieties. Those few coins will become the treasures of the future, just as the 1909 SVDB and 1955 double die are treasures today. The clock is already ticking, and collectors know it. That urgency fuels demand right now. Another parallel worth noting is the emotional connection. The 1909 penny represented Lincoln's legacy. The 1943 copper represented the wartime sacrifice. The 1955 double die represented the excitement of discovery. The 2020 penny represents resilience in the face of global crisis. People attach emotions to coins, and emotions drive value as much as rarity does. That is why auctions often exceed expectations. Bidders are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, an emotion, a connection to history.so. When someone says a 2020 penny could be worth $5 million, it may sound unbelievable at first, but when you line it up with the great rarities of the past, it makes perfect sense. If the right combination of rarity, error, condition, and story comes together, the sky is the limit. History shows us that pennies have achieved million-dollar status before. And history has a way of repeating itself. Imagine the scene in the future. An auction hall filled with eager bidders. The room quiets as the auctioneer holds up a small coin. On the screen above, the coin appears magnified, a 2020 Lincoln cent, shimmering with luster, authenticated by PCGS as a unique error. The auctioneer begins. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Hands rise, voices call out, tension builds. Finally, the hammer falls at $5 million. Applause fills the room. Headlines are written the next day. Ordinary penny becomes $5 million treasure. Collectors everywhere dream of finding another. And once again, The humble penny cements its place as the most extraordinary of coins. This is why you should never underestimate a cent. Coins are more than currency. They are history, art, mistakes, and miracles all rolled into one. The 2020 penny may seem ordinary now, but it carries within it the potential to be extraordinary, just as the 1909 SVDB, the 1943 copper, and the 1955 double die once did. And if you are lucky enough to hold one of the rare varieties in your hand, you will not just be holding a coin. You will be holding a legend. One of the most important things to understand about the 2020 penny, or any rare coin that people claim is worth millions, is that the world of numismatics is not only filled with treasures, it is also filled with traps. Where there is hype, there are myths. Where there is value, there are fakes. And when collectors start hearing about a 1-cent coin possibly being worth $5 million, opportunists appear almost immediately, ready to take advantage of the excitement. That is why authentication, knowledge, and caution are absolutely crucial if you want to navigate this world safely. Let's begin with authentication. When someone finds a coin that looks unusual, the first instinct is excitement. Maybe the coin is heavier or lighter than normal. Maybe the design looks doubled. Maybe the strike seems off-center. But excitement is not enough. For that coin to have value, it must be authenticated by experts. This is where professional grading services like PCGS and NGC come in. They have specialists who have spent years studying coins, learning to identify genuine errors from post-mint damage, and distinguishing true rarities from clever fakes. When a coin is authenticated and encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a certification number, its value is transformed. Suddenly, buyers have confidence. Suddenly, the coin can be sold at auction. Without that authentication, the coin is just a mystery piece that may or may not be real. Collectors know this, which is why they are willing to pay premiums for graded coins. A raw, ungraded 2020 penny claiming to be an error might sell for a few dollars online. The same coin, once authenticated by PCGS as a genuine wrong planchet strike or double die, could sell for thousands, even millions. Authentication is the bridge between rumor and reality. It is the difference between wishful thinking and confirmed treasure. But here is where the problem begins. Not every unusual-looking coin is a mint error. Many are simply damaged after leaving the mint. Coins get scratched, bent, corroded, or altered in circulation. Sometimes people intentionally alter coins to trick others into thinking they are rare. For example, a penny might be filed down to make it look off-center, or chemicals might be used to create unusual toning. These altered coins are worth nothing beyond face value, but to the untrained eye, they can look convincing. This is why so many beginners fall into the trap of thinking they have found $1 million coin, when in reality, they are holding damaged pocket change. The 2020 penny has become especially vulnerable to myths and scams because of its hype. Social media is filled with posts claiming that any 2020 penny is worth thousands, or that a 2020 penny with AD mint mark is instantly a fortune. These claims are misleading. The truth is that billions of 2020 pennies were minted, and the vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent. Only specific, authenticated error coins or high-grade specimens have extraordinary value. But myths spread faster than facts, and soon people all over the world start hoarding ordinary 2020 pennies, convinced they are sitting on hidden wealth. There have even been cases where fake stories go viral, such as people claiming that banks are secretly buying back 2020 pennies for huge sums, or that the government has placed a special mark on certain coins. None of these are true, but they create excitement, and excitement fuels the hunt. Opportunists then step in, selling ordinary 2020 pennies on online marketplaces for inflated prices, taking advantage of people's lack of knowledge. Some buyers pay $50 or $100 for a penny that is literally worth 1 cent, simply because they were misled by rumors. This is the dark side of the coin collecting frenzy. Collectors who know the truth protect themselves by following a few simple steps. First, they research carefully. They consult trusted sources like the PCGS CoinFacts database, auction records, and reputable numismatic publications. Second, they examine their coins under magnification, checking for signs of genuine mint errors rather than damage. Third, they weigh their coins precisely, because composition errors always reveal themselves in the weight. For example, a genuine 2020 penny should weigh 2.5 grams. If it weighs 3.11 grams, it could be struck on a copper planchet, which would make it extraordinary. But if it weighs something random like 2.3 grams, it is probably just worn down. Accuracy is everything. Another key is understanding the difference between machine doubling and true double die errors. Machine doubling is a common phenomenon caused by vibration during the striking process, and it creates a flat, shelf-like doubling that looks dramatic but is worth very little. A true double die, however, comes from the die itself being improperly made, and it creates rounded, distinct doubling on the design. To the beginner, both can look similar, but to experts, the difference is clear. Many people mistake machine doubling for a valuable error, only to be disappointed later. The role of myths cannot be overstated. The 2020 penny has already developed a kind of legend around it. People talk about secret million-dollar versions, hidden varieties, and unique specimens locked away in vaults. Some of these stories may have kernels of truth, but many are exaggerated. The human mind loves mystery and treasure hunts, so the myths persist and grow. In some ways, these myths are beneficial because they draw new people into the hobby, sparking curiosity and excitement. But they can also lead to disillusionment when people realize their hoarded coins are not worth what they thought. Still, the myths serve an important function in the market. They keep demand alive. Even if most 2020 pennies are ordinary, the belief that extraordinary ones exist makes people keep searching. That searching leads to discoveries. And every once in a while, a true rarity does surface. When it does, the myths transform into reality, and the cycle of excitement continues. There is also a psychological side to scams. People want to believe in the possibility of hidden wealth. They want to believe that the penny in their pocket could be their ticket to fortune. Scammers exploit this hope, selling rare 2020 pennies on online platforms, sometimes even claiming they are worth millions. Experienced collectors shake their heads, but beginners fall for it. This is why education is so important. Knowledge protects you from being fooled. Knowledge helps you separate fact from fiction, value from fantasy. So, when you hear that a 2020 penny could be worth $5 million, remember to ask the right questions. Which variety? Which error? What grade? Was it authenticated? Has it sold at a reputable auction? If the answer to these questions is unclear, then the story is probably a myth. But if the answer is yes, if the coin has been authenticated, graded, and sold at auction, then it becomes part of numismatic history. The line between myth and reality is thin, and only experts can draw it. In the end, the lesson is this: the 2020 penny is fascinating, exciting, and filled with potential, but not every coin is a treasure. If you want to be part of this story, you must learn the tools of the trade. Use magnification, use a scale, study error varieties, and most importantly, trust only professional authentication. Because while scams and myths will come and go, true rarity always survives, and true rarity always commands value. And perhaps that is what makes the 2020 penny so compelling. It is not just the possibility of fortune. It is the adventure of separating myth from truth, scam from treasure, rumor from reality. That adventure is what keeps collectors searching, what keeps auctions alive, and what keeps the humble penny at the center of some of the most extraordinary stories in history. When we talk about the 2020 penny today, we speak of it with a mixture of excitement, skepticism, and curiosity. But let us project ourselves into the future, into a world decades from now, where today's ordinary pocket change becomes tomorrow's priceless relic. What will happen to the 2020 penny 20, 30, or even 50 years from now? Will it still be surrounded by myths and rumors, or will it have finally claimed its place in numismatic history as one of the great rarities? To answer that, we need to understand how the coin market evolves over time, and how collectors shape the destiny of every coin. History shows us a clear pattern. At the time of release, coins are often ignored. People spend them, lose them, toss them into jars. Only a handful of sharp-eyed collectors put aside pristine examples. Over the years, circulation does its damage. Coins become scratched, dented, and corroded. By the time a new generation of collectors arrives, those once common coins in high grades are suddenly rare. That is why coins like the 1909 SVB or the 1955 double die are so valuable today, because most of their population has been lost or worn down, leaving only a few survivors in mint condition. The same process is already happening with the 2020 penny. Yes, billions were minted, but billions will not survive. Many will be spent endlessly until they are too worn to be recognizable. Many will be melted down in the future when laws or policies change. Many will simply vanish, forgotten in drawers, dropped on sidewalks, corroded in the ground. Over time, the vast ocean of 2020 pennies will shrink, and the surviving islands of high-quality coins will stand out. And if those surviving coins also happen to carry errors, wrong planchets, double dies, or dramatic off-center strikes, then their value will soar beyond imagination. Collectors of the future will not only care about rarity, they will also care about history. And what does the year 2020 represent? It represents a moment unlike any other in modern memory. A year of global crisis, a year of resilience, a year that reshaped the world. That alone will give the 2020 penny symbolic power. Just as coins from wartime carry special meaning, the 2020 penny will always be a reminder of survival and endurance. When collectors 50 years from now hold a 2020 penny, they will not just see copper-plated zinc. They will see a piece of history, a direct link to a year that tested humanity. Now let's imagine the marketplace of the future. Today, rare pennies are sold at auctions and coin shows, but tomorrow, new technologies will transform how collectors buy and sell. Digital platforms, blockchain verification, and virtual auctions may dominate. Provenance will be recorded forever, tracing the journey of each coin from discovery to auction. In such a world, a unique 2020-era penny could become a global sensation, watched live by millions across the internet as the bidding climbs higher and higher. The hammer falls at 5 million, or perhaps even more, and in that moment, history repeats itself. The smallest coin becomes the biggest story. Another factor to consider is generational collecting. Every generation has its own set of key dates, coins that define the era. For older collectors, the 1909 SVB was a rite of passage. For mid-20th century collectors, the 1955 double die was the dream find. For modern collectors, the 2020 penny may well become that defining piece. Children who handle these coins during 2020 will grow up, look back with nostalgia, and begin collecting them. Nostalgia is one of the most powerful forces in numismatics, and it will push demand higher as time passes. What seems ordinary now will one day feel extraordinary simply because it carries memory. But let us not forget the role of hype and myth. Even decades from now, stories of hidden 2020 pennies will still circulate. People will whisper about undiscovered varieties, about secret errors locked in private collections, about legendary coins that have yet to resurface. These myths will keep the market alive, because collectors will always be hunting, always searching, always hoping. And it is that eternal hope, the dream of turning a penny into a fortune, that keeps numismatics vibrant. Now picture this. The year is 2070. A major auction is underway. The headline lot is a 2020 Lincoln cent, a coin authenticated as the only known example struck on a pure copper planchet during the year. Collectors around the world tune in. The bidding starts at 1 million. It climbs to 2, 3, 4. At 5 million, the room is electric. At 6 million, hands are trembling. At 7 million, the hammer falls. The coin becomes not only the most valuable penny of all time, but one of the most valuable coins in history. Reporters rush to publish the story. People everywhere search their old jars and boxes, hoping against hope that they might have another. And in that moment, the 2020 penny achieves immortality. But even if such a dramatic scenario never happens, the 2020 penny will always carry significance. Whether it is worth 1 cent, $100, or 5 million, it tells a story that no other coin can tell. It is a story of a world in crisis, a mint still producing coins amid chaos, and collectors finding meaning in the smallest of objects. That is what makes coins magical. They are not just metal. They are storytellers, witnesses, survivors. And the 2020 penny may be one of the greatest storytellers of all. So, what should you do? Should you hoard every 2020 penny you find? Should you rush to have them graded? The answer depends on your perspective. If you are a dreamer, then yes, hold on to them, search carefully, hope for the miracle. If you are an investor, then focus only on authenticated errors and high-grade specimens. And if you are simply curious, then let the 2020 penny remind you that value is not always measured in dollars. Sometimes, value lies in the story, in the connection to history, in the wonder of holding a tiny piece of a larger world. As we close this journey, imagine yourself holding a 2020 penny in your hand right now. Feel its weight, just 2.5 grams, almost nothing. Look at its design, Lincoln's face, unchanged for over a century, staring forward with quiet determination. Think about the year stamp below, 2020, a year etched not only in metal, but in memory. And ask yourself, is this just a coin? Or is this a key to something greater? For some, it will always be just 1 cent. But for others, it will always be a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the smallest things can hold the biggest stories. That is the legacy of the 2020 penny. That is why people believe it could be worth millions. And that is why, no matter its market value, it will forever remain priceless in the story of our time. When we speak about the 2020 penny, we are not only speaking about a coin. We are speaking about culture, about the way humans assign meaning to objects. A coin is nothing more than metal, stamped by machines, mass-produced by the billions. And yet, people hold it close, they protect it, they chase it, and they dream about it. Why? Because value is not born in the mint. Value is born in the human mind. Consider how societies throughout history have treated coins. Ancient civilizations minted coins not only to facilitate trade, but to spread power and identity. Roman emperors placed their faces on coins as a way of declaring dominance. Medieval kingdoms minted coins with symbols of their faith, transforming currency into a declaration of belief. Even in modern times, coins are not just money, they are national emblems. When you hold a coin, you are holding a piece of a nation's soul. The 2020 penny, carrying Lincoln's enduring portrait, carries the soul of America, but it also carries the spirit of a year that changed the entire world. The psychology of collecting goes deeper. Why do people search for pennies worth millions when they know the odds are almost impossible? Because human beings are wired to hope. We are treasure hunters at heart. From the legends of lost cities of gold to the stories of pirates' hidden chests, the idea of turning nothing into something drives our imagination. The 2020 penny fits into this eternal story. It is modern treasure hunting, accessible to anyone. You do not need to be a millionaire to take part. All you need is curiosity, a handful of change, and the willingness to look closer. That is why millions of people feel drawn to it. This cultural obsession also speaks to art. A penny is art in miniature. The detail of Lincoln's face, the curves of the lettering, the simplicity of the date, it is sculpture on a microscopic scale. The reverse designs, whether the Union Shield of 2020 or earlier memorials, are not just functional, they are symbolic. They tell stories of unity, strength, and memory. When collectors admire a rare penny, they are not only admiring its rarity, but its craftsmanship. In that way, the 2020 penny is not just a coin, it is a canvas, a tiny artwork that links us to history. There is also a philosophical side. Think about the irony. Society often overlooks the penny. Many people throw them away, ignore them, even campaign to eliminate them. And yet, at the same time, a single penny can be worth millions. This contradiction reveals something profound about human life. The smallest, most underestimated things often hold the greatest potential. The penny is a metaphor. It teaches us never to underestimate the overlooked, never to dismiss the ordinary, because within the ordinary lies the possibility of the extraordinary. Imagine a child in 2020 saving pennies in a jar, not knowing that one of those pennies might one day be worth a fortune. Imagine that child 50 years later, discovering that they have been holding a treasure all along. That story is not only about coins, it is about life. It is about patience, about holding on to things that others dismiss, about recognizing value where others see none. The 2020 penny, in this sense, is more than numismatics. It is philosophy made tangible. The cultural impact extends even to language. People already use penny in countless sayings. A penny saved is a penny earned. A penny for your thoughts. In for a penny. In for a pound. These sayings remind us that even the smallest unit of currency carries symbolic weight. The 2020 penny adds another layer to this symbolism. One day, people may say, "Remember when the 2020 pennies sold for millions?" And it will become part of folklore, a modern proverb of luck, chance, and fortune. Collectors, psychologists, and even historians will look back and see how the 2020 penny phenomenon reflected the human spirit during a time of crisis. In a year filled with loss and fear, people found hope in something as small as a coin. They found distraction, joy, and community in searching for pennies. Social media groups formed, collectors shared discoveries, and families searched through jars together. In a way, the 2020 penny was not just a coin, it was therapy. It was a reminder that even in hard times, beauty and possibility could be found in unexpected places, and that is what makes this story timeless. 100 years from now, when people study the culture of 2020, they will not only talk about the events that shook the world, they will also talk about how, in the midst of uncertainty, people turned to coins, to pennies, to the thrill of discovery. They will say that the penny became a symbol of resilience, of optimism, of human imagination. So, the 2020 penny is not just about money. It is about meaning. It is about the psychology of hope, the culture of collecting, the art of minting, and the philosophy of finding greatness in smallness. That is why its story will never die. Even if its market value fluctuates, even if hype rises and falls, its cultural value will remain eternal, and perhaps that is the greatest treasure of all. When it comes to the 2020 penny, excitement and curiosity are powerful, but knowledge is the real treasure. If you truly want to discover whether the coins in your pocket or your coin jar are valuable, you must approach the hunt like a professional. The difference between finding a fortune and finding disappointment is often just one detail, one scratch, one number, one weight. So let's walk through exactly how collectors examine their 2020 pennies, step by step. The very first step is patience. Never rush. The market rewards careful eyes, not hurried glances. When you find a 2020 penny, don't dismiss it. Treat it with respect. Hold it gently by the edges to avoid fingerprints and scratches. Remember, condition matters. A coin in pristine condition will always have more value than a worn one, even before errors are considered. The second step is magnification. A simple magnifying glass is useful, but serious collectors use a jeweler's loupe or a digital microscope. Under magnification, you can see details invisible to the naked eye, doubling in the date, cracks in the die, or slight misalignments in the strike. These are the features that separate an ordinary coin from a rare one. Look carefully at Liberty, at In God We Trust, at the numbers in the date. If you see bold, rounded doubling, you might be holding a double die. If you see flat, shelf-like lines, it is probably machine doubling, which is less valuable. Learning to recognize the difference is a skill that pays off over time. The third step is weighing the coin. A normal 2020 penny weighs 2.5 grams because it is made of copper-plated zinc. If your coin weighs 3.11 grams, it could be struck on an old copper planchet, making it a rare treasure. Use a precise digital scale that measures to at least 2 decimal places. Even a small deviation can signal something unusual. A coin too heavy or too light deserves closer inspection. The fourth step is measuring the thickness and diameter. Sometimes errors occur when a coin is struck on a planchet meant for another denomination. A penny struck on a dime planchet will look smaller and thinner, and it will stand out immediately. Collectors call these wrong planchet errors, and they can sell for huge sums. Comparing your 2020 penny against a normal one side by side can reveal if something is off. The fifth step is studying the strike. Is the coin perfectly centered? Or is the design shifted dramatically to one side, leaving blank space on the opposite edge? Off-center strikes can range from slight misalignments worth a few dollars to dramatic off-centers worth hundreds or even thousands. If the date is still visible on an off-center strike, collectors pay even more. The sixth step is surface examination. Look for die cracks, die chips, and cuts. These are small imperfections created when the minting equipment is damaged. While minor die cracks are common, dramatic cuts, where a piece of the die breaks off and leaves a raised blob of metal, can be valuable. The more dramatic the error, the higher the interest. The seventh step is authentication. Once you believe you have found something unusual, never assume it is valuable until a professional confirms it. Submit your coin to PCGS or NGC for grading and encapsulation. Yes, there is a fee, but the investment is worth it. A coin with professional certification is trusted in the marketplace and can sell for far higher than a raw coin. Authentication transforms potential into reality. The eighth step is research. Don't just rely on rumors or viral posts. Check auction records, numismatic forums, and official coin fact databases. Knowledge is your shield against scams. If someone offers you thousands for an ordinary penny, it is likely a trick. If someone claims any 2020 penny is automatically rare, it is a myth. The truth is specific, and truth protects your wallet. Finally, the ninth step is patience once again. Rare coin discoveries do not happen overnight. Many collectors spend years searching before they find something extraordinary. But every search teaches you something new. Every coin examined sharpens your skills. The hunt is not only about money, it is about learning, passion, and connection. That is why even ordinary 2020 pennies have value. They are part of your journey as a collector. And now, as we come to the end of this story, let us step back and see the bigger picture. The 2020 penny began as just a coin, struck by machines, minted by the billions. But it became more than that. It became a mystery, a rumor, a symbol of hope, a cultural obsession, and perhaps one day, $1 million treasure. It reminds us that history is not always written in grand monuments or golden statues. Sometimes, history is written on the smallest of coins. So, The next time you hold a penny in your hand, don't just see it as change. See it as possibility. See it as history waiting to be discovered. See it as proof that value is not always about size or weight, but about story. Because in the end, the greatest wealth lies not only in the money we find, but in the stories we tell, the hope we carry, and the lessons we learn. And maybe, just maybe, the penny you hold today, the humble coin you almost ignored, will one day be the coin that changes your life forever.